This is my encounter with black-eyed kids. Please share. I'd like to know other people's thoughts. Thank you. First, a quick intro about myself. I'm 26 years old, male. I work at a small private college in Michigan. I'm a normal, average guy. I like hockey, HBO shows, kayaking, and hiking and camping. I have a girlfriend, love my dad and sister, and have a pet dog named Bear. While I keep an open mind, I don't believe in ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot, and I'm not even too sure about God. The way I see it, if I haven't encountered it firsthand, or seen documented, verifiable proof, then I keep a healthy amount of skepticism. There is one thing I do believe in now that I never did before. Hell, I didn't even know about it before. Black freaking eyed kids. As I said earlier, I loved to hike and camp. For reasons too introspective to get into fully here, I just love the solitude, peace, and serenity the outdoors provided me. My life is not overly stressful, chaotic, or dramatic, but every once in a while I manage to get away from it all. Being alone in the wilderness gave me the opportunity to clear my head, be introspective, consider the facts of life. I love the beauty of the natural world, and I try to appreciate the small and big things, from the smallest clover to the biggest mountain. Beauty is all around us. In a way, I think it's my belief in beauty that has helped me cope as well as I have with what I'm about to share. In late August of 2010, I set out for Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, located along Lake Michigan. I had scheduled 5 days off of work, and I planned on making the most of it. Sleeping Bear is one of my favorite parks in Lower Michigan. I know it to be a great place for some solitude, and having usually been abandoned by sun worshippers by mid-August, I knew I'd have most of the park to myself. So I wasn't surprised when I arrived the first day, found my usual parking spot, a sand parking lot just yards from the lake, and didn't see another person. As I sat on the hood of my car, overlooking the beach and the lake, I remember breathing deeply and saying aloud, "Thank God for solitude." I ate lunch, walked down the beach, and put my bare feet into the water. Oh, cold. Very cold. It didn't matter to me, though, because I didn't come here to swim. I came to hike and to camp. I came to, as was my tradition, sit by a warm fire on a cool night, sipping on my flask of whiskey, enjoying the sounds of the forest. However, this peaceful tradition didn't happen. Now, the proper procedure when camping at a state or national park, if you've never been, is to check in at a ranger station. There you pay your fees, obtain your backcountry pass if you're going to be camping in the backcountry as I always do, and give the rangers your information, license plate number, make and model of your car, etc. After my quick stop off at the beach to eat my lunch, I headed to the nearby ranger station, a 15 or so minute drive, and get my affairs in order. The Plate River Ranger Station is manned until mid-October, I think, so it was open and I didn't have to travel to the main station a half an hour's drive north. I park in the station's parking lot and walk into the office. The ranger and I spoke for a little and he asked me for my license plate number. I knew he was going to ask, but I still forgot to write it down before I went in. So I walk back out toward my car and I see two kids sitting at a bench just in front of where I'm parked. They weren't there when I parked, and I didn't notice them when I walked into the station, but at this point I'm still on cloud 9. I'm happy to be on vacation, so I take no real notice. I walk to the back of my car, jot down the license plate number, and walk back to the office. I take care of business in the office and step out and walk to the connecting bathroom. The backcountry area I'm staying at, White Pine, has a pit toilet. Think porta-john, but just with a deep hole in the ground, but I like to use the real bathroom while I can. I go into the restroom and go into the empty stall. As I'm taking care of my business, I hear the bathroom door open. I hear whispered voices. It's a small bathroom, but I can't make out what the voices are saying. I can tell they're kids' voices though, and I figure it's the kids I saw near my car earlier. No biggie, right? I finish up and open the stall door. Sure enough, there are the two kids standing outside the stall. I remember saying, "It's all yours," as I walk to the sink. The kids just stood there. When you think about it now, in reading, the situation seems a little spooky, but at the time, and if you were in the situation yourself, I'd bet that you wouldn't be the slightest bit worried, and neither was I. I wash my hands and glance in the mirror, only to notice the kids are looking right at me. This is the first time, but certainly not the last time on this trip. that my spine tingles with fear. The goddamn kids have completely black eyes. No whites in their eyes at all. Like I said, this is a pretty small bathroom and they were not more than 3 feet away. At first I can't do or say anything. I'm literally frozen with fear. The water runs over my hands, but I can't feel it. I'm so deep inside my head at this moment that all I can hear are my thoughts, which were something like, "Ah!" All joking aside, I was petrified. It was only when one of the kids, a brown-haired boy that I would guess was around 12, took a step toward me that my fight-or-flight instincts took over control of my fear. I turned off the water. Why I bothered, I don't even know. Habit, I guess, and moved a step back from the kids toward the door. Seemingly sensing my fear, the boy didn't take another step toward me. Instead, he stopped. On retrospect, I can guess he was trying to keep from frightening me too much. Didn't work, kid. "Can you help us?" That's what the boy said when one of us finally spoke. For a moment, I did want to help. I consider myself a pretty nice guy. I'd go out of my way to help pregnant women carry groceries to their car. I'd rescue cats from trees if the situation arose, and for a while, I thought that's why I wanted to help those creepy kids. I thought my sheer decency was what made me, despite my better judgment and despite my fear, want to help them. Only since I began researching the BEKs do I realize that I didn't want to help those kids, but whatever magical, mystical voodoo power they had made me want to help them. I can't tell you with any certainty how long I stood motionless thinking about helping those kids, but it seemed like an eternity. Finally, like a physical shaking of my brain, I said, "No, not right now, I gotta go." And then I left the bathroom. I remember in that 2 seconds my back was turned on those kids to me leaving the bathroom. I felt certain I was going to die. I thought as soon as my back was turned, they were going to tear me to shreds. It was with knee-buckling relief that I left the bathroom and walked out into the midday sun. I walked the 15 or so feet to my car on noodle-like legs, too afraid to look behind me. I fumbled for my keys and unlocked my door, sat down, closed the door, and locked it. Only then, in the safety of my locked car, did I feel safe enough to look back toward the bathroom. Damned if the little bastards weren't standing just outside the bathroom staring at me, with those big, black, soul-sucking eyes. I want to take a moment to explain a little bit more about myself. I'm not a big man, but I'm not small either. I'm 6 foot with shoes on, as I always say, and I'm around 185 pounds. What I'm saying is, I can take a couple of 12-year-olds in a fight. I assume, having never actually fought any 12-year-olds since I was 12 myself. And in my hiking, I've encountered odd people before. I've turned a bend on a trail only to startle a huge grizzly bear. I've been lost once, and ran out of water once. And I even had a tree fall in the middle of my campsite during a gale-swept night in Tennessee, as I was drifting off to sleep. However, not a single event in my life scared me nearly as much as those kids. So, there I am, in my car, staring at those kids, and them staring at me. I can't take my stare away from them, and they start from my car. Startled to my senses, I turn the key and throw it in reverse. And get the hell out of there. I drive off, not daring to look in the rearview mirror. I know that if I do look back, that I'll see those black eyes looking back at me. I turn onto the main road and head the short drive north to my campsite. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Why the hell are you still camping? To be honest, I can't tell you why. I was just so much in shock that I wasn't really thinking. It wasn't until I parked in the sandlot at the head of the White Pine Trail that my brain started functioning again. The drive home would only take 3 hours. I could make it home in time for dinner, but for some reason I talked myself out of it. Sitting in my car, in the sun on the beach, has a way of taking away all the bad things. I just talked away my better judgment. I won't be doing that again. It's around 3 o'clock, and I know that the sun will start to set in around 3 or 4 hours, so I know I should head toward my camping spot. It's not a very long walk from the parking lot to the White Pine Backcountry Campground, but it will take around 45 minutes, leaving me just a couple hours to set up camp, gather firewood, cook dinner, and eat before nightfall. Oh, fuck it, I remember saying to myself. I get my pack out of my back seat and take off down the trail. Now, there are two ways to access the White Pine campground from where I was parked. I could either head through the woods, or I could walk along the beach. The wooded trail is quicker and shorter, and the beach trail is harder on the legs and lungs. Walking with a 50-pound pack in the sand is no picnic. However, considering what I just went through, I decided to go along the beach. It was the more open, brighter, kinder trail. To reach the campsite from the beach trail, you have to turn away from the lake and go about half a mile into the woods. Reaching my campsite, I find it, unfortunately, completely empty. The campground has 7 sites, I think, and not one of them was taken. Usually this would be a happy thing to me, but this time I wished for all my might for a little company. I pick a site hidden fairly well from the trail, feeling that I didn't need anyone walking along to spot my tent. I unpack and set up my ultralight one-person tent, put down my sleeping pad, and unroll my 0-degree rated mummy bag. Taking my walking stick, a sawed-off hockey stick, and a folding knife with me, I head into the forest to gather firewood. I pile up a good-sized pile, 3 times larger than I think I'll need, and proceed to light a fire. I cook my food and eat, all the while watching the sun set through the trees. What is normally a beautiful, warming sight to me now only brings dread. I do not want to be out here alone, I suddenly realize. I finish eating quickly and decide to gather even more firewood. I do not want to run out in the middle of the night. As the darkness descends upon the woods of my campsite, I get the fire going and I rifle through my pack looking for my flask. This was a situation that called for a little liquid courage. I hit it hard. In the woods, the sun sets at first slower than you think, and then near the end it just kind of falls out of the sky and is gone in a blink. So it did that night. Sitting next to the fire, I decide to move my tent closer to me, so I click on my flashlight and move my tent until it's right behind the small bench next to the fire ring. I like having the tent behind me, protecting my back as I saw it, and I'm glad I decided to gather more firewood because I'm burning through it quickly, keeping the fire as high as I am, even though it is early autumn and the temperature was probably in the 40s. I was hot sitting so close to such a big fire. Part of getting away from it all for me is to leave my phone in the car. In civilization, I don't use a watch, I just look at my cell. However, this night I wish I had my cell on me, not to call someone since there is no service, but to check the time. I wanted it to be late. I wanted the night to fly by and give me the security of the morning. I finished the whiskey and wish I had brought the bottle with me from the car. The spirits had done their job though, and I was a bit calmer. Also, praise be to God, I was feeling sleepy too. Though the rules say, don't go to bed with your fire burning. I sure as hell was not going to sleep without that fire. I got in my tent, leaving the flap open with just the bug flap closed so I could see the fire, and tried to sleep. I don't know how long I lay there before sleep found me, but I did eventually drift off. Thankfully, I can't remember having any dreams. I awoke to a dead fire and the early dusk light coming in. I have to say I was slightly surprised to be alive. As dawn turned into day, I felt more and more foolish for the fear I felt yesterday. Being a usually calm, cool, and collected guy, I couldn't explain the intense dread and fear I felt when I saw those kids. But I did my best to ignore it, and I explained their eyes away pretty easily. I told myself the kids were camping at the Plate River campground, same location as the ranger station I registered at. They had some colored contact lenses and were playing a joke. Simple. Possible. Even probable considering the alternative. I ate breakfast and then made upon hindsight, horrible decision. I decided to stay another night. After breakfast, I gathered firewood so that I wouldn't have to gather any when I got back for the evening. My pile of wood at a towering height, I hiked back to my car along the wooded trail. I was feeling awfully stupidly brave that morning. I arrived at my car and decided to go to the dune climb. The dune climb is a trail that begins at a towering dune and ends about a mile and a half away from Lake Michigan. This hike was uneventful but beautiful, provided me even more determination not to let myself be scared off by some stupid kids with contact lenses. I got back to my car from the round-trip hike around 1 o'clock. I got out my small camp stove and cooked some soup. Finished lunch, I decided that next I would take the scenic drive. I forget the name of the road that is part of the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, but it's a winding drive with several scenic and educational pull-offs. It's relaxing and beautiful. I finished with that around 3 o'clock, and I decided I would head to Traverse City, just a 45-minute drive away, and do a little shopping and grab an early dinner at a nice steakhouse. This is not something I normally do while camping, but after the previous night's events, I decided to treat myself. Traverse City is a nice town to visit if you ever have the chance. Just a recommendation. I went to this steakhouse just outside of Traverse around 4:30, figuring a quick dinner, a 45-minute drive, and an hour walk would get me to my camp at just about dusk. But that's not what happened. The restaurant was packed. I got a table fairly quickly, but the service was very slow. In the end, I didn't get out of the restaurant until dusk. Cursing myself, it began to rain as I drove back to the trailhead parking lot. By the time I was at the lot and parked, it was full-blown nighttime. Sitting in the parking lot, listening to the wind and the rain, I was pretty damn scared again. I think that if nearly all of my gear was still at the campsite, then I would have just drove home and said screw it. However, I couldn't abandon several $100s worth of camping equipment because I was scared. I'm not a pussy. I gear up, flashlight, pocket knife, water bottle, headlamp, and walking stick. Again, I had two options: through the woods or along the beach. The storm clouds blocked out most of the stars and moonlight, so I would have been kidding myself to think that the beach would have been better lit. But it was still more open and provided me with a better feeling, so I took the beach path. The path is only 1.5 miles long along the beach, and then another half-mile into the woods at the campsite. I figured if I hustled, I could be at my campsite in just over a half an hour. I turn on my headlamp and move off down the beach. The wind is hitting pretty hard, and it's pretty damn cold, but I'm prepared. My coat has a nice rain shell, and I'm not getting too wet. Hiking in the dark is not smart in the best of circumstances. In this area there are cougars and bear, both rare, but the danger is getting lost, or stumbling over something and injuring yourself. However, I wasn't too worried about any of that. The animals are so rare in that area, it'd take very bad luck to get bothered by them, and the beach was clear of most debris that I might trip on. What had me worried was a creeping sensation of paranoia. As I walked, the sensation of paranoia and dread grew. I stopped every 10 feet or so to look around, lighting the tall grass next to the beach and before the woods with my headlamp. I opened my jaw and listened. You can hear better with your mouth slightly open. But I saw nothing and heard nothing. I'd walk another 10 feet and I just knew that someone was watching me. It was hard to hear anything over the lapping waves of the lake and the howling wind of the storm, but I swear I heard voices in the tall grass. I've been walking probably half an hour. I knew I'd be meeting off with a trail leading to the woods and to the campsite any second now. But then my world fell apart. Having one of my strongest moments of feeling watched, I turned around, facing the direction I came. And there they were. The boy who spoke to me earlier couldn't have been more than 5 feet away. And the other boy, the quiet boy, was standing slightly behind him. Each of the boys stood motionless, staring. Just staring. At this moment, I'm not sure I have the ability to put my terror into words. The best way I can describe it is to say I felt like I was dying. I felt like I was in the hospital, and the doctor just told me I had moments to live. The talkative boy moved toward me. The only light on the beach came from my headlamp. Neither kid had any sort of flashlight. My LED beam flashed across their faces, reflecting grotesquely in their large, dark eyes. The waves crashed and the wind blew. Help us. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I could barely breathe. The boy moved closer. The quiet boy stepped to the side, almost like he was circling behind me, and that broke the spell. I'm not fucking helping you. We're lost. We can't find our campsite. Is this a game? I asked, even though I knew it wasn't. Take us with you. Please. We'll die out here. We're afraid. I call bullshit on that one. They're scared, I thought to myself. I'm scared. You're the one with the creepy eyes, the vacant, hollow voices. You're the ones with the fisheye stare. The quiet boy moved a little more. He was now standing beside me, just a couple feet away. The talkative boy was still in front of me, blocking the way I had come, blocking the path back to my car. Then things even got weirder. "Okay, you can come with me," I said. I don't even remember thinking the words, they just came out. The talkative boy smiled and he reached to take my hand. The fight or flight response hit me so hard it was like a physical punch to the stomach. I recoiled at the sight of this little monster trying to take my hand. Before I even realized it, I'm running down the beach. I'm sprinting away from the little bastards in my car as fast as I can. I don't look behind me. I don't know if they're following me or not, and I don't want to know. All I know is that I need to run faster. I'm in decent shape, but given any normal circumstance, I would never have been able to run so quickly for so long on a beach. My headlamp bouncing up and down, I see the offshot trail leading from the beach into the woods. Without much thought, if any, I take the trail and head into the woods. My senses finally returning to me, I jump off the trail and move a little ways into the woods. I turn off my headlamp and lie down among some tall grass. I watch the trail, waiting to see the kids following. I waited, in the rain, and cold for God knows how long. A couple hours at least. No kids. The cold was slowly creeping in. I wasn't sure if I was shivering because of the adrenaline, the fear, or the cold, but I do know I was starting to freeze. I had to leave my concealment and make my way to shelter. I had two options, the tent and my sleeping bag, or the car. The car meant safety. It meant home. However, it also meant that I'd have to walk a mile and a half in the dark with God knows who or what waiting for me. The tent meant warmth and shelter from the elements. It meant exposure to the kids. If the kids knew where I was hiking and when, then they'd know where I was camping, right? It was an impossible decision. It was a choice of the lesser of two evils. I chose the tent. I just couldn't force myself to go back along the wooded trail, and I sure as hell wasn't going back along the beach. I crossed my fingers and prayed the little bastards didn't know where my tent was. I got up, found the trail, and sprinted the half mile to the campground. As I ran, a thought occurred. Maybe somebody will have hiked in during the day. Maybe I'll have company. There was no life at the campground. When I arrived at the campground, I made a wide circle of it, looking for both other campers and the little devils. I saw nothing and no one. I made my way, as quietly as possible, to my tent. I unzipped the fly and crawled in. I thought briefly about a fire, but decided that would be more of a signal to the kids than deterrence. My clothes were sopping wet, and I was still very cold. I had to take them off. My pack is leaning against a tree about 15 feet from my tent. Inside are clean, dry clothes, sealed tightly in a wet bag. However, now that I'm inside the tent, I'm sure as hell not going back out. The tent gave me some sense of security, even though it wasn't in any way secure. Now naked, I crawl inside my mummy bag. I'd like to say how much I hate that it's called a mummy bag. After a few moments, I warm up, but the shivering takes another third of an hour or so to subside. As I'm lying there, I'm wishing so much that I had that bottle of whiskey in my car. The rain plays against the leaves of the trees, and the wind creaks the branches. Under the best of circumstances, this is a night where a person's mind can get away from them. For me, it was utter terror. My imagination made every creak, every howl of the wind into something sinister. As the hours passed and my adrenaline faded, I felt immensely tired. I wanted so badly just to fall asleep. In sleep, I wouldn't know I was being eviscerated. I'd either wake up or I wouldn't. I thought it was a nightmare at first. When I heard the voice say something, I thought I was dreaming. But then sleep cleared from my head and I realized I was awake. It was still night, and the storm was still biting. "Help us," an unmistakable voice said. I couldn't help it. It was a gut reaction. I screamed. I lay naked, my mummy bag zipped up to my chin. I was completely helpless. I felt like a newborn baby, my fate completely held in the hands of others. "Please let us in." "No!" I screeched, and then again, "No!" "It's so cold. Please let us in, mister." I stopped replying and could only sob, like a heartbroken teenage girl, like a woman who just learned her sister died. I sobbed. I was so uncontrollably scared that I thought it helped me not pay attention to the kids' demands. At least not fully. "Let us in." I tugged the pull string on the hood of my mummy bag until I was completely enveloped. I just kept repeating, not daring to listen to the kids, the word no. No, 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 no! I waited for death. I knew it was coming. Any second and I'd be ripped to shreds. The kid kept saying something, but I wasn't listening. I wouldn't listen. I knew how overwhelming their hypnotic power was. I did everything I could not to listen. I kept chanting my mantra, kept howling my nose. I don't know when I fell asleep, but the next thing I knew, I startled awake. The sun is shining, and I'm alive. I don't know how, but I'm alive. I look around my small tent, and I don't see anything amiss on the inside. It takes me several minutes to gather the courage necessary to unzip the tent fly, but I finally do. I peek my head out, but see no one. Naked, I run to my pack and grab my clothes in the dry bag. I toss some clothes on and race back to the tent. I tear it down in a matter of moments. I pack my sleeping bag and my pad and tent into my pack and take off down the trail. I decide one more time to take the beach trail. In the sun and warmth of the morning, it's an entirely different trail. The only moment I'm given pause is when I come across a duck with what seems to be its heart torn out. I took a photo with my disposable camera in my pack and move on. I arrive at my car and I find it unmolested. I get in and drive home. It's been almost 2 entire months since this happened, but I still remember it all like it was yesterday. I haven't gone camping since, and I don't know if I'll ever feel safe hiking again. Maybe I'll go camping again sometime in the future, but I'm bringing a friend. No more going it alone. I, thankfully, haven't seen any more black-eyed kids. I don't want to pose it on what they are. I don't want to think about whether they are demons or monsters, aliens or hybrids. I was interested at first. I did some research because I wanted to know if I was crazy. I don't care what you think they are. I don't care why they are. I just wanted to know that I wasn't the only one who has had this experience. I'm not, and I'm thankful for that. My advice, if you ever do encounter a BEK, don't listen to it speak. Don't be polite in case they're just weird kids. Don't question their validity. Don't worry about looking silly or that others will think you're crazy. Just run. Run and don't look back.